California's temporary tax hikes expire in 15 days.
15 days.
He's from Southern California. This is a John and Ken political world now.
The show is quite amusing. Just because a talk show guy wants to hold your head on a stick, they feel that their heads will be on a stick.
This is John and Ken's Tax Revolt 2011.
John and Ken Show. John Cobelt and Ken Shampoo. Chaos reigns. Tax Revolt 2011. Heads on a stick. We told you yesterday, call Jerry Brown's office. Call his press office.
You convinced him.
Tell him to veto this budget because the taxes are illegal. And today he vetoed the budget because the taxes are illegal.
He did. He actually put out a press release, and then sometime after that appeared in L.A. at a press availability where he took questions. But he actually wrote in his veto message, this budget contains legally questionable maneuvers. And we told you yesterday, those taxes, raising the car tax and the sales tax by a quarter of a cent, no good.
The way stabbing
two-thirds,
stabbing your wife in the back would be a legally questionable maneuver. I love these politically correct, carefully worded statements. It blatantly breaks the law, violates the Constitution. They did this knowingly because they wanted their paychecks. Because with that new Proposition 25, if they didn't pass the budget on deadline day yesterday, they weren't going to get paid. And they thought this slop, this bag of stinking feces, was enough for them to get their paychecks.
Both Democrat leaders, Darrell Steinberg and John Perez, used the word dismayed about the veto. Steinberg said, we are deeply dismayed by the governor's decision. And Perez said, quite frankly, his action is dismaying, which is such a mild non-word that it leads me to believe they weren't surprised he did this, in other words.
Well, because they knew it was illegal. And they know governors generally don't sign into law illegal taxes. Now, how would that work to Jerry Brown's benefit?
For the record, John Chung, the controller, has not made a decision yet about what he's going to do concerning Proposition 25 and the belief that they don't get paid unless they have a budget. Well, they did pass a budget, and they sent it to Brown, but Brown vetoed it. Did they get paid? They're not due to be paid again. They're paid once a month, June 30th, so he says he's going to study the situation.
All right, let's get Eric Leonard on because he went to the Jerry Brown press conference, which Brown had in L.A. shortly after the veto was announced. Eric!
The stink of conspiracy was in the air in the governor's office because everybody wanted to know, was that veto a done deal? Was that worked out ahead of time to simply allow the legislature to meet its deadline for passing the budget, secure its paycheck, knowing full well that the whole thing would get thrown out the next day?
Well, what did you discover?
Well, the governor denies that that's what happened. He denies that there was some sort of arrangement ahead of time.
Well, no one knew. Yeah, that's what. Extend your inclusion there. No one knew. I mean, this is a moving target.
In other words, this thing was going one way and the other way, and Brown didn't know what his response was going to be.
So wait a second. Hold on. Yeah. You tell me Darrell Steinberg doesn't call up Jerry Brown and say, look, I've got the votes to pass a majority budget, and here's the sales tax in there and the car tax in there and blah, 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 blah. He doesn't call Jerry Brown to say, if we pass this, will you sign it? No. I don't believe that.
Well, he says they did meet, but nobody knew that he was going to veto it until last night, until after the vote had been cast in the legislature. So take that for what you will. But
well, he would have known about the details of what they were putting in there. John's right, and he certainly would have known what he was probably going to do.
And Steinberg would ask, are you going to pass it? And Jerry Brown would give him an answer.
You would think.
Of course. What do you? These people are going to act just the way you and I would act if we were planning some kind of scheme. And, you know, if Ken was the governor and I was the head of the Senate, I'd call him up and say, hey, Ken, I got this pile of crap I'm going to pass. Are you going to sign it?
Well, yeah, and all they do is say every day, we're talking. I'm talking
this
to
is what they're talking about.
Well, exactly. If you've not been talking about this, what are you talking about?
What do you think? Sorry. Either that or they're doing some Anthony Weiner business.
Now, the governor says that this veto today, this first ever budget veto, is the only way he could shake up the system. Those are his words. Because he says this stalemate that he blames completely on the Republican legislators for not going along with his tax extension election plan, he says can't be fixed in any other way.
A handful of Republicans will not vote to let the people exercise their sovereign right to say yes on tax extensions or no. Then we're in a much more difficult place. And the deeper cuts to schools and the university it's going to be on their hands.
The blood is going to be on the Republicans' hands when voters reject this, and they have to start digging deeper and cutting even more than has been cut already.
There's 5 Republican senators that went public this week, and they released all the demands that they want to get the tax referendum on the ballot, and it really primarily is about a hard spending cap, and new state workers would have to get their pension money partly in a 401k plan. And Jerry Brown made it sound as if he's got a deal with those Republicans the other day. Well, and the Republicans make it sound like Jerry Brown's amenable to this, but it's the Democrats and the union thugs that control them who have vetoed that deal.
Yeah, it sounds like there are opposing forces here that are going both directions. You're absolutely right. The governor says that there are some things that will be hard for the Democrats to swallow that he wants as part of all of this. And it sounds like he's really pushing, if he's going to get the Democrats to agree, he's saying that they're going to have to agree to some of these unpleasant things. But on the other hand, he says the Republicans are the ones holding it up. He says they're the ones that he's going to have to convince to go against the wishes of their party.
I think people have to take a more heroic attitude.
Now, he uses the word heroic there, meaning, and it seems like he's referring very specifically to those Republicans that would have to step away. And later he uses the word courageous. So he's saying that he needs heroic people in the Republican Party to be courageous and do something that the party doesn't want.
He needs comic book heroes
in order for him to get his way. Now,
well, not much different than the last 6 months, really.
No, and that's really, another thing that came up in all of this, which was you've been making the same arguments. You've been saying you're going to break the stalemate. You're going to come to some sort of resolution. And in fact, Brown, didn't you? This is a question posed by another reporter. He says, "Well, didn't you campaign on the very position that because you've been governor before, you know how things in Sacramento work, you're the guy that can negotiate this minefield and bring people together and fix this thing that has been going so wrong for so many years?" And he says, "Well, yeah, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go back and talk to them some more." and actually, that's his strategy.
I'm going to talk to each of those.
See, he's going to go back. He's going to talk to them more.
In a way, this is early. I mean, they haven't passed a budget June 15th since 1986, and the last year it dragged into September.
Small victories, right?
So looking at it this way, he thinks he still has time.
They dragged it into September, and it was fake then. Remember, by December, the whole thing had blown up.
So now the only incentive really was this entire paycheck issue, and it remains to be seen how that's going to hold up. Now, Brown has promised, well, maybe promised is the wrong word. Brown has let it be known that there might be consequences if the Republicans don't play by his rules.
All right, we will get to that as soon as we come back.
Okay,
Eric
guys.
Leonard covering Jerry Brown's appearance in L.A. today. They call it a